We were writing all over the windows about all the things that brought us joy. I was leading a retreat. There was about 8 women or so, and it was a women's leadership retreat around joyosity. And I had rented a space that overlooked a river, and we were writing on the windows the things that brought us joy. And the reason we were doing that is because if you don't know what brings you joy, there is no way you can ever live in joy. And joy matters for your work, for the rest of your life, because joy is an act of resistance, and it is how you make it through when life is hard. And it matters to you as a leader. So if you are new to the Joyosity podcast, welcome. Here you are. This is the center of Joyosity, where we are working to create positive culture with complex people. And I'm Jenn Whitmer, an international keynote speaker, a leadership consultant, an author, and the host here, and an all-around joy bringer. And what we are doing is rejecting the idea that this is just the way it is, and that toxic teams are normal and we should all just live in exhaustion. And for those of you who are returning, thank you so much. I'm always glad that you are here and a part of this movement. And we are concluding a mini series on the new year. And rather than new year, new you, we're rejecting the idea that there's something wrong with you, that you are broken, and you need to become an entirely different person in the new year. And instead, operating under the idea that a new year also provides a new opening. And today we're going to do a little bit of nitty-gritty work. So if you're driving while you're doing this, you may want to listen later and grab either some Post-it notes or a notebook, because you're going to be writing some things down. You can also grab and download the Joyosity Explorer map at jennwhitmer.com/Joyosity Explorer. And that will also give you a framework to do what we are doing today. If you already have the Joyosity book or the Joyosity Works playbook, this is some of that work too. But we're going to walk through it step by step, which is a little bit different than just reading it somewhere. And it's much more like when we were writing on the windows at that retreat. And when we were writing on the windows, one of the women turned around and she was like, I had no idea that these were some of the things that I loved so much. And when I started questioning her, and she's like, because I never take the time to just sit and do. I never take the time to reflect. And this has been incredibly powerful. So when she said those words to me, it just continued to remind me of the power of just having a guide walk you through. And so this series, we've talked about values. I've given you a values exercise in episode 120. In episode 121, we talked about stories and gave you some more tools there. Last week, we talked about personality and the Enneagram and how that impacts the way that you lead and cultivate joy. And so today, what we're going to do is pull all of that together in starting to think about, well, how do I actually design my life for joy? And that it's going to take a little reflection. So feel free to pause and write and take as much time as you need. So this episode might not be very long, but if you pause and take the time to do it, it will be incredibly powerful for you. So hopefully you've had enough time, even if you haven't paused it, to grab something to write with, because the first thing I want you to do is a brainstorming step. And this means you're not going to edit. You're not going to be like, oh, I shouldn't write that down. That seems silly. And start to like judge what's coming out of either your mouth or your pen. And you're just going to write. And I want you to fill as much as you possibly can until you feel like you don't have quite anything left. So I'm going to give you a few prompts to start writing as much as you can. And feel free again to pause and keep writing when I move on to the next step. So this step is, what are the things that bring you joy? So what are the things that give you a sense of belonging, They're the things that give you energy. They're the things that you're like, I can't believe I get to do this. This is part of my life. This is part of my job. What are those components in your life? And what also connects to purpose? What benefits other people when you do these things too? So, not everything you write down needs to have all three of those components of joy, but everything that you write down should connect to that. And so it gives you a sense of belonging, you feel lucky, and it helps other people and connects to purpose. Write down as many things as you can. Sometimes a way to think about that is, what are things that I would be so sad if they took that away from my role at work, or if I stopped doing this particular activity in my world? What would I just lose? I would be so sad about that. I was doing this workshop recently at an agency here in town, and we were going through some of this exercise. And I had brought some Joyosity pens, like some swag from a party. And I was making fun of said pens because I didn't like that pen, and I'm kind of a pen snob. Well, come to find out, one of the guys in this organization is a pen connoisseur, and there are pen conventions. And he was talking about the mechanics of the pen, and he had this amazing pen, and we all were like, that's amazing. Because this one person had joy very specifically labeled for himself around pens, and he expanded on why he liked pens so much. It also brought us into a little bit. We now understood him a little bit more, and he started to feel a sense of belonging in that, beyond even the convention that obviously brings a sense of belonging. So you sharing your joy and knowing what your joy is can benefit other people. It doesn't have to be their joy to benefit them, but you have to know what it is first. So just write as many things as you can. It can be a pen, it can be Disney ears, it can be coding, it can be whatever. But what are the things that bring you joy? Step 2. So if you've paused, welcome back. Now what we're doing is, what are the things that drain your joy? Sometimes I label this as toil. Toil has a more specific definition that I talk about in the book and when I'm working with teams and leaders. But for today on the podcast, what are the things that just drain you? The things that you're like, oh my gosh, if I have to continue to do this, I might lose my ever-loving mind. What are the things that if you could get rid of today, you would be like, absolutely, amen, I am done. If I never have to see that again, it is a day too soon. Like, what are those things that drain you, that when you're finished, even if you're quote unquote good at it, you're exhausted at the end? Write down as many as you can. The things that zap your joy, it can be the people that zap your joy, that are energy draining for you. It may be something that you used to love, but you don't love anymore. And that's okay. This can change over time. Do this process regularly. So if you need to pause to keep writing, as many things as you can possibly get down, that's what I want you to do. So as we move on, we've got these things that bring us joy, that are the components of joy, that you feel lucky or favored, that it gives you a sense of belonging and it has purpose. And then you have the things that are toil or draining to you, that you don't feel skilled at, you don't have enough time to do. It zaps and drains your energy. You feel exhausted at the end of it. And often when I do this, people beg the question, well, am I just supposed to do everything that I'm happy with all day, every day? No. One, it's unrealistic. It's completely unhinged, because we can't live our lives like that. And you physically can't sustain it. The biology that we are created with cannot maintain high levels of joy all day, every day. I know that's shocking to you from the joy bringer, but it's true. And so when I've been doing the research about the book, and as I've worked with teams over the last several years, what we work in is what's called the joy ratio. Because as much as we cannot have all joy every day, all day, every day, we also cannot completely eliminate toil and the things that drain us. And what is your joy might be someone else's toil, and what is their toil might be your joy. So, how do we work with this inside the joy ratio? So, what you're going for is you want 35% of your time spent experiencing joy, those three markers of joy. You feel lucky or favored, you feel a sense of belonging, and it connects to purpose and it impacts other people positively. If you're spending 35% of your time in joy, what begins to happen is that you are more effective at work. You are 3.5 times more likely to help other people. Your group, your team will experience a 25% increase in productivity. And if your team starts to experience joy, your retention rates go up, your engagement rates go up. And so, in general, you're getting all the things that you want to have in life because those are the things that you're skilled at that bring you energy, that they're your natural gifts and talents, or the ones that you have honed and skilled over time and you have a natural bent toward. And anything that you are interested in, you are going to be better at when you apply it in that way. So, you want 35% of your time in that. Now, above that, great, but we're shooting for the threshold of 35%. And then for the toil part. Now, as I said, we cannot eliminate toil completely. We just can't. So what we're trying to do is keep it into the small 10%. I call it toil's tiny 10. And so you've got 35% of your time spent in joy, 10% or fewer, 10% or less time spent in toil. Obviously, there's a big 55% in the middle that we're not talking about today. That messy middle, it's most of the book of Joyosity of how you manage all of that. But today we're just talking about the 35 and the 10. And so as you look at this list, if you've got the Joyosity Explorer map, it's going to walk you through several more steps that are really specific and helpful. And what I want you to do is start to narrow down what is something from your joy list that you would like to do more of. And what is something from the toil list that you would like to do less of? Once you have that, your next step is how do you accomplish that? Now, you may already know the answer. You're like, oh, I can delegate this, or I can spend more time doing this. You may not know the answer right away. It may take some time for you to sit with and look. But if you don't have that answer within the next 5 or 10 minutes, that's okay. I just don't want you to give up. Put some time on your calendar to revisit this and problem solve it, work it out. If you want some help, I'm always actually very happy to help people walk through that. You can grab what's called a Spark call with me. It's jennwhitmer.com/spark-call, and it's 15 minutes. And we'll start talking a little bit more about how you create a plan to do that. But when you start to put joy into that 35% and toil into the 10, and you're keeping the ratio in that space, you will start to experience more joy. And all of that stuff in the messy middle, how you manage your personality, how you manage your stories, how you're working with your values, all of those things will start to help you manage the 35 and the 10. It's how it all fits together. Obviously, 15 minutes on a podcast isn't enough to really dig in. There's always more. But the tiny changes, even in the last week of January, you can design your life for joy. You just have to know what it is. You have to take the time to reflect and recognize what are the things that bring you joy and what are the things that feel and cause you toil. Because when that ratio gets out of whack, then those are the times where we become disengaged, we don't communicate as effectively, we become overwhelmed, exhausted, all of that happens. But you taking the time to identify and then choose the action step toward joy, that is where so much power is. So, as you know, I like to put on my coach hat. What is your next step? If you paused and you spent the time to reflect here, what are you doing next? Don't just keep that to yourself. I would love for you to either, you can share publicly, you can send me a DM, you can share it with a boss, a neighbor, you can email me, Jenn@jennwhitmer.com, but you need to tell somebody what that next step is because it's too easy. It's too easy in our pressure filled, move fast, you're not even worthy of joy. What are you talking about? Get the work done type of attitude to let it slide. And then you lose all the things that joy cultivates. And you don't want that. You want to create a space and design a life for joy. So take it some time and share it with somebody else, because then not only have you just reinforced what you're going to do, it's a little bit of built-in accountability. So you start to really work toward it. You don't have to do 82 next steps. You do not need to become a new person, but it is a new opening toward joy. So what's your one next step? It might be getting on a Spark call with me. It might be doing some of the other things that I've offered in other podcasts. It might be grabbing the book, Joyosity. You can get it wherever books are sold or at jennwhitmer.com/books. But know what your next step is and tell someone. That's where the power really begins, because joy is a team sport and you need other people to help you along the way. I can be that person for you. I would be so honored to do that. If your team wants this, I would love to help you work through this with a team and helping design how your team functions together based on joy. And you can find all of that information on my website at jennwhitmer.com. But mostly, I want for you to know that you are worthy of cultivating joy. And it is powerful for you. You may not be standing at a window writing on the glass, but the things that you wrote down on this paper today are powerful to help you start to design your entire life to create more joy.